What if the ending of Descendants? Wicked Wonderland already gave us the first major clue about Descendants 6. Because while everyone was celebrating Red and Chloe's happy ending, Disney may have quietly introduced the character who could completely change the future of this franchise. And I'm talking about Pink. Wicked Wonderland didn't just give us another adventure. It expanded the Descendants universe with an entirely new generation, and Pink might be the most important addition of them all. At first, she's simply Red's younger sister. But after everything that happened with time travel, altered history, and the secrets surrounding Wonderland, that family connection could become much more important than we realize. The movie may have ended with Maddox defeated and the Wonderland crisis resolved, but not every mystery was actually answered. And that's where Pink comes in. There's still an unexplained connection between Pink, Red, and the mysterious object introduced near the end. We don't have confirmation about what it means yet, but Disney has a very obvious opportunity here. What if Pink is connected to the next major threat? Think about it. Red spent these movies trying to fix the past and protect her future. But what happens when someone from the next generation discovers that the timeline she grew up believing in was changed? Pink could eventually start asking questions. Why did Red change history? What was hidden from her? And why does her family seem to know more about the timeline than she's being told? That could completely change Pink's relationship with Red. And there's an even darker possibility. What if Pink doesn't just discover the family's secrets? What if those secrets turn her against them? We've already seen how Descendants loves taking familiar characters and putting them in unexpected situations. So Pink becoming a villain wouldn't be completely out of nowhere. In fact, actress Leah Sava Jeffries has already talked about wanting to explore a darker side of Pink. That doesn't mean Disney is definitely turning her evil. But if a sixth movie happens, it's definitely a storyline worth exploring. And this is why I don't think Descendants 6 necessarily needs to repeat the same time travel story. The franchise could move forward. Instead of changing history, the next movie could be about dealing with the consequences of the changes that have already been made. That's a much more interesting direction. Because what happens when the new generation discovers that their perfect world was built on someone else's decisions? Pink could become the person who uncovers that truth. Red could be forced to defend the choices she made. And Chloe could find herself caught between them. Suddenly, the story isn't about heroes versus villains anymore. It's about family. It's about secrets. And whether fixing the past actually created a better future. There's also another reason I'm paying attention to Pink. Wicked Wonderland introduced several new characters, including Pink, Hazel Hook, Louis Madrigal, and Max Hatter. That doesn't feel accidental. Disney is clearly expanding the world instead of simply bringing back the same characters again and again. So if Descendants 6 happens, I wouldn't be surprised if the franchise shifts its focus toward this younger generation. And Pink could be right at the center of it. She could become the new hero. She could become the next villain. Or honestly, she could become something much more interesting. A character who isn't completely good or completely evil, but someone who has to decide whether the timeline her family created actually deserves to survive. And that would give Descendants a completely new kind of conflict. Of course, there's one important thing we need to remember. Disney has not officially confirmed Descendants 6. So everything beyond Wicked Wonderland is still speculation. But when you combine the unresolved ending, the new characters, the sequel potential, and Pink's connection to the story, it's becoming harder to ignore the possibility that Disney has already planted the seeds. And if Descendants 6 really happens, the biggest question may not be what happens to Red. It might be what happens when Pink finally learns the truth. So now I want to know your theory. If Disney announces Descendants 6,